Okay, so our next two leaders are going to be the British leadership. First is going to be Neville Chamberlain. Now, Neville Chamberlain was going to be the British Prime Minister at the very beginning of the war and then the lead up to the war. Probably best known for his policy of what's called appeasement. Appeasement is essentially going to be, hey, let's do everything we can to negotiate ourselves out of having to fight a war. They want to do everything they can short of fighting a war to kind of bring about peace. Was kind of seen as a wimp because of it. Kind of seen as spineless for the most part. He was the guy that when we talk later about how the war actually gets started, he's going to be the one that's kind of leading the charge of, well, we kind of feel bad, so we're going to let Germany get away with this. We're going to let them get away with that. And ultimately, a lot of people kind of blame him for, uh, you know, the reason why World War II is going to come to be. If a lot of people look at him and say, hey, if you had actually done something militarily early on, we never would have gotten to that point. Instead, appeasement was his policy. He's actually going to resign as British Prime Minister in 1940. He had kind of lost political support. Like I say, people were blaming the war on him. So he resigns. He's actually going to wind up passing away not long after that. So Neville Chamberlain, seen as the British prim and proper gentleman, always in his tuxedo, was seen as kind of a wimp and is known for that appeasement policy, ultimately kind of blamed for World War II. Next guy is going to be Winston Churchill. Now, Winston Churchill is going to be the exact opposite of what Neville Chamberlain was. Where Neville Chamberlain was seen as a wimp, Winston Churchill is seen as kind of hardcore. He was no nonsense. I'm going to do what I have to do. I'm going to use the military to get the job done. He becomes the prime minister from 40 to 45. He steps away, and then he actually is brought back later on in the 50s. He is going to be the leader that Britain really needed during World War II. He was going to be tough. He was going to be strong. He wasn't going to back down from anybody, and that really was the kind of leadership that Britain needed during World War II. Had Churchill been in from the very beginning, it's reasonable to think that Germany would not have been allowed to get as far as they did. He was fairly, good friends with President Roosevelt. It was there are a lot of stories of him being at the White House, and the two of them just being very, very friendly with one another. They got along really, really well. So once again, Winston Churchill was going to be the strong leader, the one that's really going to, kind of take charge in terms of British leadership in World War II. And in fact, because of the way that he kind of ran things, the way that he kind of, chose to be really, really harsh with regards to how he was going to run things, the concept or the thought of the British kind of having a bulldog as a representative, that's really kind of where it came from, because if you look at a comparison between Winston Churchill in his heyday, the only thing he's missing there is his top hat and his cigar, which he had a lot. um, you look at the comparison between the two of them, and a lot of people said that, hey, he kind of looks like a bulldog. So from then on, the British bulldog kind of became symbolic of the of Great Britain.